All right, well, welcome everyone, and thanks for your patience. And it looks like we have a good turnout today. We have 33 people. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the slide view here. Okay, I think we've got that going. All right, well, welcome everyone to the meeting today. So hopefully you're at the right meeting. This is a public meeting for the general permit for domestic wastewater systems for 100,000 gallons per day or greater that discharge to land. I am Jennifer Epp. I'm the Waste Discharge Requirements Program Manager. And with me today are both Kelsey Gearhart and Howard Kolb, engineers at the Water Board that have been working on this project. And we're going to tag team the presentation today. So we've had several of these public outreach meetings, and our objectives today are to touch on just a few brief background pieces of information. And then really our main purposes for the meeting today is to walk you through some of the changes that we've made to the draft general permit. So we put the draft permit out for public comment, and we had lots of good discussions as well as good written comments from several of you. And we've used those to make changes to the permit, and we wanted to take the opportunity today to really walk you through some of the significant ones, see what questions you have, and essentially start a dialogue about those changes. And then also share with you some information to help prepare you for the board hearing that's on September 25th. I'm assuming most of you or all of you who are participating today are participating because you got the notice from us both about this meeting as well as the notice that the documents are available for the board meeting and some information on how to participate on the board meeting. And I'm going to touch on a few highlights of that information that you should have received in that email. And if you're for some reason not getting those interested party emails, please reach out to one of us and we can help get you set up with that. All right, so this is just a little bit of a refresher about where we're at schedule-wise. You've seen this slide before if you've participated in any of the other meetings, and we started in working on this project really last fall and with a bunch of data analysis, and we completed that data analysis on all the information from our existing permits and our existing facilities and their water quality data. We finished that in December, and then developed a bit of a charter for how we were going to move forward with this project. And then we reached out to the folks who have a permit with us in December to let them know that we were starting this project. And then in January at the board meeting, we provided some background about the project. And then in February, many of you participated in the scoping meeting. We had then the public comment period started in June with several outreach meetings that we had via Zoom during the public comment period. Public comments were due on July 20th, and then we're here today with a step in between the September 25th board hearing date. And so in the email that was sent out to the interested parties list, we pointed you to two different locations of where documents are posted. So many of you have seen this webpage before because this is where we posted the draft public notice as well as the draft order and monitoring program, as well as where we've been posting the video presentations of meetings like this. And then these are the two additional documents that are located here. And these are the red line strikeout copies of the permit. We have with the board package a nice clean copy of the permit, but here is a really nice reference if you want to just look and see what's changed since you've seen the permit last. So I've circled here the two areas where you can find both the monitoring program as well as the order in that red line strikeout format. And then over on the board agenda webpage, where all the documents are posted for the board meeting that's on the 25th, I also sent you a link to that, and that includes the staff report for item number 14, which is this item, as well as various attachments. And so attachment 2 is the proposed order, which includes the order attachments A, B, and C, and then as well as attachment D, which is the general monitoring program, and attachment E. And so the attachment D that you see here, as well as the order, these are the clean copies. So they're not red line strikeout. It's just the version that has the changes incorporated. And as I mentioned, we will be having a hearing for this proposal to adopt this general permit during our regularly scheduled board meeting, where this and several other items will be heard. The meeting itself goes from 9 to 5, and our agenda item is item 14. And there's a couple different ways that you can participate in the meeting. If you just want to listen and watch, you can watch the live stream, and all of these links were in that email as well, but there's a calspan.org link where you can just watch the stream. If you want to participate and comment like you would be if you were here in person, we now have a way to fill out a virtual speaking card, and I also sent the link to that virtual speaker card information, and they would like that to be received. Let me move the thing over out of the way here, by September 17th at noon, so that the board chair can help organize and know how many speakers we're going to have for each of the items. And similar to when we do meetings in person, when you fill out a comment card, our comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. There is a process if you want to request more time, and that information is on the agenda at the bottom. You can read that information. And then those people who have filled out that virtual speaker card will receive an email with a Zoom link that will allow you to actually participate, and the person who's monitoring the Zoom call to unmute you and allow you to talk during public comment. So there's two paths. There's the passive, just watch the presentation on CalSpan, or there's the active if you want to potentially talk. And if you're not sure if you want to make comments, but you might, you can also indicate that on the comment card. You can fill it out and say, well, I may or may not want to speak, but I'm going to fill out a comment card anyways. And then this is just a visual representation of what that virtual speaker comment card form looks like on the webpage. It asks for your information, and then that gets added to the information to send out links for the board meeting. So as we mentioned, we put out the permit for public comment, and we received comment letters from 8 different entities, including the City of Guadalupe, Santa Maria, Mission Hills, Cal American Water, Cambria Community Services District, Wallace Group, the Cypress Ridge Limited Partnership, and the City of Greenfield. And in the board agenda package, one of the attachments is a full list of all of those comments received, as well as detailed responses to all of those comments. So it's a fairly long document. I think it's about 45 pages long, but it lists all of those comments in a detailed response. And it also indicates which comments we made changes to, and if so, what those changes were, so that you can look at that document and cross-reference that track changes version of the permit. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Howard, who is going to walk through some of the changes that we made to the permit, and then Kelsey's going to also follow him with some additional changes that we made to the permit. So first of all, we're going to need to make sure that we can hear Howard, and he's at the moment muted. So are you able to unmute yourself, Howard? Or do you need me to? I cannot pull up the meeting controls. Where are they? So Howard, can you click on the unmute button there? Great. And now I'm going to mute myself.
Can you hear me now? We ready?
Give me just a second. Let me mute myself if I can. There we go.
Okay, as Jennifer said, we had 8 sets of official comments, and I really want to thank everybody for commenting. I also want to let everybody know that we had a number of phone calls, phone meetings. A lot of questions were answered that didn't require somebody to submit a comment letter, so we really appreciate all the input and exchange that we had with the different groups. In response to discussions and letters, one of the big issues that came up is there was concern on the part of the regulated community that they may not have time to comply with the conditions of the permit when enrolled. So we took that to heart, and we actually have modified the draft permit to allow enrollment, but then a 24-month period to meet the conditions of the order. And what that means is you'll stay under your current effluent limits, and we'll craft that into the enrollment, and it gives you 24 months to come up to speed with the conditions of the order. If for some reason you can't meet that 24-month window, there's also a provision that allows dischargers to request additional time, and that would be through a time schedule order. Next slide, please. And by the way, we'll have questions at the end, and you can come back. And if you look down in the lower left-hand corner, right-hand corner, you'll see slide numbers. And so that last slide was slide 10, and this is slide 11. There was also some concern about the total nitrogen requirement. This was previously required of all facilities in tables 3, 4, and 5. We've moved that limitation to tables 6 and 7. And table 6 and 7 become effluent limits if the discharger elects to go a certain route with their wastewater treatment facility. Also in tables 3, 4, and 5, we clarified the pH limitation, just modified the language a little bit. Next slide, please. On tables 6 and 7, we had an original table 6 in the permit. That table has been removed, and that table was for limitations for select constituents like phenol, oils, and grease. That has been removed. There are still monitoring requirements that remain in the MRP that we will work with dischargers to determine if you need to do that monitoring based on your system. We've also created a new table 6 and a new table 7, or a revised table 7, excuse me. Table 6 now outlines the requirements should you select to go that route, and table 7 has been streamlined so it's easier to understand. The biggest difference is table 6 is for designated groundwater basins, and table 7 is for non-designated groundwater basins, and that is where you discharge to, that whatever that basin is. Next slide, please. We also heard from a lot of people, there was some confusion about some terms and how we were defining things, so we've made an effort to go back and we've added a whole series of new definitions, and we've clarified some. So right here you can see these are new definitions for what is a designated basin, what is a non-designated basin, what is a wastewater system. Next slide, please. And then we've also clarified some, so we went in and reworded what was in land application area, spreading basin, rapid infiltration beds, and impoundments. Next slide, please. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Kelsey, and she will go through some additional changes we made. And please, again, note the comment any questions and comments by slide number so we can get back to that at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Say it again.
Testing. Good. Thank you, Howard, and I apologize, everyone. We're trying to get this all figured out. Good morning. My name is Kelsey Gerhardt, and I'm a staff water resource control engineer here at the Central Coast Water Board. As Howard has done, I will use the next few slides to walk you through revisions made to the general permit in response to comments received during public comment period. So as Howard had mentioned in the previous slide, we'll walk through the clarifications made related to land application disposal methods. In response to several comments received regarding applicability of land application requirements, we have revised existing definitions and added to the definitions list found on the general permit as attachment A. These definitions include land application area, spreading basins, rapid infiltration beds, and impoundments, and this was shown on the previous slide. Similarly, to further clarify requirements for land application disposal methods, we revised Attachment D, Section 4 of the General Monitoring and Reporting Program to read wastewater disposal monitoring. This change further clarifies that the discharger must monitor all wastewater disposal areas when wastewater is applied. And again, we do want to reiterate that the General Monitoring and Reporting Program is a template and will be tailored to a facility at the time of enrollment. And lastly, in line with the revised and new definitions found in Attachment A, we updated the language in General Permit Section 4 specifications. This included Table 2 titled Summary of Wastewater System Setbacks, Item B, Pond Systems, Item C, Land Application by Spray or Drip Methods, and Item D, Land Application by Controlled Flood Methods. Next slide, please. Solid waste. In response to comments received, we clarified requirements related to the handling and disposal of solids waste by revising Attachment A definitions to include 1, a definition for solid waste as it relates to the general permit, and 2, an updated definition for sludge. We also carried these revisions over to Attachment D, Section 5 of the General Monitoring and Reporting Program. In turn, dischargers are not required to report on the handling and disposal of screenings and grit generated during preliminary treatment. Next slide, please. Water supply monitoring requirements. We received comments pertaining to the water supply monitoring requirements specified in the General Monitoring and Reporting Program. And in response, with a footnote on Table 2, we clarified that the executive officer, in coordination with the discharger at the time of enrollment, may consider the development of a site-specific water supply monitoring plan, including modifications to the sampling suite, sampling frequency, and sampling schedule. Next slide, please. Influent monitoring requirements. We received comments indicating that there is redundancy in influent and effluent monitoring requirements for specific pollutants. And in response, we updated Attachment D, Section 3C of the General Monitoring and Reporting Program. And these changes are reflected in tables 4B, 5A, and 6A. Next slide, please. General Permit Table 1. So we received comments indicating that General Permit Table 1 titled Summary of Domestic Wastewater Characteristics is outdated, and in response, we updated the table to more accurately reflect current raw wastewater strength in response to recent water conservation efforts. And next slide. Groundwater requirements. In response to comments received pertaining to groundwater requirements, we simplified the language found in General Permit Section 5C titled Groundwater Limitations, and we clarified the language found in General Permit Section 3 titled Prohibitions. And next slide, please. And this brings us to the end of our presentation. As a reminder, the Water Board public meeting for consideration to adopt this general permit is scheduled for September 25th. And if you would like to comment on the general permit at the time of the public meeting, you need to complete an electronic comment card by noon, September 17th. And this information is also found earlier in the presentation. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, as always, please feel free to reach out to Howard, Jennifer, and myself with any questions. And this next slide shows our contact information. And we will now open it up for questions. Thank you.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. And Cecile, can you wave if you can hear me? Okay, good. Okay, so we obviously covered a lot of information, but we're certainly available for questions. And I think I did change the settings, so you should be able to unmute yourself. If you would like to let us know that you have a question, we will open the floor for that. So far I'm not hearing any questions, but it's also possible that folks aren't able. Yes, Howard? They can also, people can also raise their hand as well, but that can, sometimes that's, depending on people's settings, sometimes that's easier to figure out than others. And let me see if I can figure out even how to see if people have raised their hands. So that's on the participants list here. So does one of the water board staff want to unmute yourself just so that we can make sure and make sure that people do have the ability to do so?
I just unmuted myself.
Okay. Great. Well, then, and it's okay if there aren't questions. And certainly as folks are looking at the information that's been posted on the web, as well as what we went over today, and if you do come up with questions, please feel free to reach out to us prior to the board meeting. And I think Jack has unmuted himself. Go ahead, Jack.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just a question about the process. So on the 25th, you will have a public hearing at the regional board. So what's after that? What do you expect when the board will adopt, and then when this will become effective, allowing the facilities to enroll in the general permit?
Yeah, so this is on the September 25th agenda for adoption. So if you read the staff report, we are proposing to the board that they adopt the permit on September 25th. And the adoption of the permit doesn't actually enroll anyone. It would basically set the structure up so that we can then start getting information and enrolling people. Does that answer your question, Jack?
Yes, but my question is that when the facility will be able to begin to enroll?
Anytime after. So if the board approves the permit and adopts it on the 25th, then we can enroll people anytime after that.
So then the 24 months period for compliance starts from the approval of enrollment, or starts the application date?
That's a great question. So the 24 months as listed in the permit is 24 months from when we enroll you in the permit. So if we don't enroll you until December, then your 24 months starts then. Right, Howard and Kelsey, did I get that correct? Okay. but that's a really good clarification. Thanks for that question, Jack. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Great. Any other questions?
Jennifer, this is Christina.
Hi, Christina. And
How are you?
Christina Olmos is one of the engineers on our staff who currently regulates Monterey facilities. Go ahead, Christina.
Could you clarify if a discharger can comply with some of the effluent limits, but not all of them? Would we start a time clock for the 24-month period for certain constituents? Like, will we be splitting that up, or will it kind of be all grouped together?
So the way that the 24 months is set up is that essentially dischargers can comply with their existing effluent limitations for that first 24 months, and that will apply to all constituents. So for the first 24 months, they will be in compliance with the permit if they comply with whatever the requirements are in their existing permit for those effluent limitations. Yeah, and Howard was just noting that, you know, the idea there is that what dischargers will do is they'll evaluate where their current operations are compared to where they need to go or need to be, and, you know, they'll start during that 24-month period to figure out how they can get there. And then there is also, you know, there are some facilities that the 24 months or 2-year period is not going to be enough time, and the permit also, as either Howard or Kelsey mentioned, has a process for dischargers to request a time schedule order that would give them additional time as well. Christina, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And
Thanks.
maybe an additional follow-up question. If a discharger, is it only related to the effluent limits? Let's say a discharger can't meet a setback requirement.
Yeah, let me pull up that section to see what it says exactly about the 24 months. Give me just a second here, because I don't want to quote the permit incorrectly. Give me just a second here. Doing this on a screen that's a little fuzzy, so. Okay, so this is going to be, is it this one? No? No, that's the response to comments document. Hold on. Probably would have been easier if I went to the tentative orders page. Is it? Here we go.
I guess it would be page 31 and 32 of the.
So it's the 24 months is specific to the effluent limitations. So it's the way it's written: for any wastewater system regulated by this general permit that is not able to achieve immediate compliance with the effluent limitations as specified in table 3 through 7 of this general permit, the discharger must comply with interim effluent limitations specified in their notice of applicability, which will be based on the effluent limitations in their pre-existing individual waste discharge requirements permit, their individual permit. And those interim effluent limitations will remain in effect for a maximum of 24 months after the date of issuance of the notice of applicability. So it's not related to setbacks, it's only related to the effluent limitations. So we'd have to, and I don't know what particular example you're talking about, but we'd have to look at the particular facility and see what we would want to do for that. Do you have a particular example in mind, or?
No, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that the 24 months compliance is really specific to the effluent limits, and, you know, that we're working on getting everyone into compliance with, all the other parts of the permit.
Okay, great.
That makes sense to me. I just want to make sure I understand it too. Perfect.
Okay. Howard and Kelsey, anything to add to that, or? Okay. Oh, can't hear Christina's questions. Okay. Sorry. Okay, any other questions from the group? I know it's been a quiet group in the past when it comes to questions. And I imagine that several of you are still digesting some of the information. So we'll just give a few more minutes in case there are any questions that come up. And if not, please feel free to reach out to any of us. And the reason that we're encouraging that is, as those of you who have participated in the board hearings before, they're a very formal setting where, there's just the 3 minutes and, our ability to answer questions. And so really it'd be very helpful for us if we can flush out any questions or comments or concerns as much as we can before the board meeting, because that gives us time to talk to you. It gives you time to speak, and that can be very helpful. Okay, well, I don't hear any other questions. So with that, we'll wrap this up. And as before, we will go ahead and post a copy of this recording on that same webpage, which is that tentative orders page that we've listed all the recordings from before. And so if you want to go back, and we will also send an email out to the interested parties list either today or tomorrow that contains a PDF of the slides as well. So you have that as a reference, either in the slide format, or if you want to go back and watch the presentation or share it with anyone who wasn't able to come today. And we look forward to, I'm sure there are likely going to be several questions between now and a week from Friday, and we look forward to talking to you. All right, any last questions before I end the meeting?
Nope,
Okay.
thanks.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I'm really glad to see we had a good participation, and we've really enjoyed the dialogue and discussion that we've had with many of you over the last 6 to 8 months. So thank you very much, and we look forward to talking to you, as well as seeing many of you next week virtually at the board hearing. Thanks.
Thank you.